Hey yo, Mark here for Mark's Max Muscle. And strap yourself in because it's time for another challenge round. Welcome to the challenge round. Here's the breakdown. The first competitor, standing 5 feet 8 inches, weighing 215 pounds, Casey Viator. And his opponent, standing 5 feet 9 inches, weighing 185 pounds, Frank Zane. Today's matchup is brought to you by The Greatest One, an official matchmaker of the challenge round. And we begin, as always, with the front relaxed pose. And one of these days we're going to start with a different pose. Well, I highly doubt it. This one, I'll be honest, is quite surprising to me. I'm definitely leaning towards Casey Viator, without a doubt. And like I said, this surprises me. I always admired Frank Zane's standing relaxed pose. It's just looks like a work of art here. But Casey Viator just looks like a machine. You'll notice the size of the legs on him compared to Frank Zane's. And I'm afraid this competition is not looking good for Frank Zane as far as the legs are concerned. And perhaps the judges in the 1970s were quite lenient on that. But here at Mark's Max Muscle, we appreciate the thickly developed leg area of one Casey Viator. And without a doubt scores him ahead of Frank Zane in this, the front relaxed pose. Now let's have a look at a mandatory pose. Here in the front lat spread, and Frank Zane more than makes up for the loss of points in the front relaxed pose. He's outstanding in the front lat spread, I will say. And Casey Viator, there's just not a good thing to say about this pose for him. He just really, he's just not built for the front lat spread, I'm afraid. And it's almost a total 3-point victory, but definitely not, because Casey Viator is an awesome athlete, and it's plain to see that he's just a machine here. Like I called him in the first pose. Just like machine-like tendencies or qualities, rather. And it keeps him from getting a full 3-point victory on him. But Frank Zane definitely gets a victory here in the front lat spread. Now, let's have a look at the ever-popular front and double bicep. Looks like this is going to be a classic back-and-forth battle between these two combatants. Casey Viator's, in my opinion, scoring ahead here, Frank Zane. Some people might argue and say the midsection and perhaps the conditioning is going to get Frank Zane a victory here, but in my opinion, the leg size here and the actual biceps, as it is, after all, a front double bicep pose, I just think it's too much for Frank Zane to handle, in my opinion now. But as I will reiterate, the conditioning here, Frank Zane's midsection is unbelievable on another level. But like I said, Casey Viator gets another point. Now let's have a look at a different sort of bicep here, just a single arm bicep. These two guys were noted for hitting this pose. And I must be honest, I was actually leaning towards Casey at first in this one. But the more I look at it, Frank Zane's aesthetic qualities is almost leaning towards him. But I will say, this is a very, very difficult one to judge. It's the classic apples versus oranges here. And honestly, it could go either way, but I think I'm going to just lean just slightly towards Casey Vader's favor. I guess on the fact of the actual bicep alone, the bicep development is far superior. But having said that, it's going to be just a one-pointer here for Casey. So let's move on to the next pose. And again, we have a very, very difficult choice to make here. I believe the greatest one really outdid himself here once again. An excellent matchmaker. Another reason why he is an official matchmaker here at Mark's Max Muscle. But back to the judging. The task at hand. And I believe I was leaning towards Zane at first. But the more I break it down, I feel that Casey Viator he has more to offer, especially when you look at the thickness of the pecs and always we're going to go back to the lag development here, the superiority of the lower end, the calves too. But I mean, Frank Zane just looks unbelievable, like a sculpture here. And what a difficult choice to make. And I'm just gonna lean towards Casey, or no, Frank Zane. I'm just gonna lean just slightly towards Casey. No, we're gonna go with Zane on the fact that he's displaying his tricep a little bit better, and that's my final decision, and that's my final word on it. I'm gonna regret that decision. All right, here in the rear lat spread, and this contest, if you ask me, is topsy-turvy. I figured for sure Frank Zane's rear lat spread was going to be dominant. But when I look at the thickness of the back here of Casey Viator, and it's just, I will say Frank Zane perhaps has a little bit better of a Christmas tree. Although if you consider the lighting, he is outside here. I believe Casey Viator has one hell of a Christmas tree himself. But even if it was close here, take a look at the calf development of Casey Viator. And I really think in this pose, the calves makes a difference, whereas most poses, it doesn't really make much of a difference. But having said that, Casey Viator scores up another point. And let's keep these gentlemen to the rear and have a look at the rear double bicep pose. This challenge round right here is truly what the challenge round is all about. These guys are honestly going pose for pose. And I'm going to have to lean towards Zane in this one. I will say, Casey Viator's arms are dominant. His calves are dominant. Well, I will say, Frank Zane's thigh sweep here, the way he's got it displayed, is perhaps leaning ahead. But having said that, if you really look at the detail of Frank Zane's back here, his conditioning is on another level. And really his lat spread itself, how far his lats jet out, are perhaps a little bit superior towards Casey Viator. Casey Viator with the size advantage and the traps, but when you really look at just the sheer cutness and how shredded Frank Zane's traps are, I have to lean just slightly towards Frank Zane for just a one-pointer. I'd give him a two-pointer, but as I said, Casey Viator is winning in the arm department, and just the calves here are just squeezing out, keeping him from getting a two-pointer deducted on him. So let's have these gentlemen turn around and snap a most muscular pose. Looks like Frank Zane's going to get another one-pointer here. It's very close in the upper body, but I think aesthetically speaking, Frank Zane's just edging out a victory. I mean, look at the abs here. Frank Zane's midsection is just incredible. And I believe he's scoring slightly ahead in the pec department. But what's keeping Casey Viator from getting a full two-pointer deducted off him here is his lag development. And that's been the story this whole contest, is Casey Viator's lags have really saved him from a couple of poses on getting full 2 points deducted on him. And Frank Zane, he really needed a little bit more mass on his legs to really make this pose dominant. But having said that, Frank Zane fetches himself 1 point for this pose. Now let's have a look at another version of the single arm bicep. And both of these guys were quite familiar with hitting this pose. I'm going to lean towards Frank Zane on this one, without a doubt. I feel that his conditioning is just superior in this pose. You'll notice his midsection is more than enough to warrant a full victory in this one. And his legs appear more than doing battle against Casey Viator in this one. So Frank Zane gets another point. And having said that, these guys are all tied up now. And what makes things more interesting is there is one final pose. So it all leads up to this final side chest pose. And I'm going to say this is the biggest upset in challenge round history. Because Casey Viator is scoring a victory over Frank Zane in the side chest pose. And that leads to a full victory in this challenge round. I can't believe Casey Viator scored a victory over Frank Zane. Like I said, this is a total upset. Now, don't get me wrong, I like Casey Viator. He's a great bodybuilder. But my soul, Frank Zane's a 3-time Mr. Olympia champion. I guess Casey Viator really hit his stride in the 1980s, so Frank Zane was more of a 1970s man. Of course, these guys were more than qualified to battle in the challenge round. So Casey Viator advances to the gladiator round. And of course, he'll await the challenge of another challenge round winner. And having said that, I'll take this time to mention when two gladiator round combatants go at it, and one's crowned a victor, the guy is going to go ahead and be entered in a tournament to become perhaps the champion of his decade. So I'll be giving more details on that as we advance closer to the gladiator rounds. But having said that, Casey Viator scores a huge upset victory over Frank Zane. And he is your challenge round champion. Well, that about does it for that one. As always, let me know in the comments section below if you have any other interesting combinations, like Frank Zane and Casey Viator. And I just must say, that was one of the most outstanding challenge round matches that I've ever judged. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hit like if you did, and if you haven't already, subscribe. That's it for now. This is Mark for Mark's Max Muscle.